Okay, I think we're going to get started. I think some people are still joining, but hello and welcome, a really warm welcome to tonight's webinar. Tonight we're tackling checkpoints, and you're going to find, I think, and certainly here, this to be possibly one of the best webinars that we've done, because I think it's going to give you a real insight into what you can expect as you go up the course. We've managed to assemble, and I'm perennially grateful to all the ladies who are going to be talking tonight, but we've managed to assemble quite a mega team of people who really know these checkpoints inside out and are going to be able to give you all of the inside track, everything you could possibly know as an athlete about the checkpoints and what you can expect to find when you get to the checkpoint. So we're going to kick off tonight with Nikki Ligo, and Nikki, many of you will know already, and has run the whole of the checkpoint. She has been that lady who has been in charge of points. And Nikki's going to give us the overview of the checkpoints, but not just the aid station checkpoints. She's also going to give us an overview of the monitoring stations, and she's going to give us an overview of what she and the checkpoint team would expect from you as the athletes, and also what you can expect from them. And I think that's really important. So as always, this will be recorded, but there's going to be quite a lot of information, so it might be worth you taking notes as you go along. And as with all of the webinars, we can't see you, and obviously you don't have access to mics either, just to make it straightforward. But there is the Padlet function, and that link is in the chat. And if you click on that link, it'll take you to Padlet, and you can put your question. And as we reach the end of each presentation, each checkpoint, if you like, I'll pick up questions as we go along. All of the team tonight are going to cover off what happens if you're finished point. What are the differences between summer and winter? So before you ask your question, it might be worth just letting them almost get to the end of their presentations, because I think you'll find the questions you've got. So I think it's going to be a good one. I hope you all enjoy it. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Nikki.
Thanks very much, Anna. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to share my presentation, and thanks, Anna, for asking me to come on. So just give me a second. Right, hopefully you can all see that. Please, someone shout out at me if you can't. So just as Anna said, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we expect of you, as well as what you can expect of us in the checkpoints running up the course. Got a picture here of Langdon Beck, inside Langdon Beck, with a lot of our runners in there, and this on the other side is our lovely Alston checkpoint crew. So it's not letting me, there we go. So we've got 5 main checkpoints. I'm not going to go into any detail on these, because my colleagues and friends will all be going through those in more detail, but just to say, there are 5 of them. There's a maximum 6-hour stay at each checkpoint, summer and winter. You have access to your drop bags, and meals are provided. And just roughly, they are here on the course. I mean, you will all be very aware of them already, I'm sure. I've not labelled on here Edale, that's very obviously down at the bottom, and Kirk Yetholm at the top. So in addition to those 5 main checkpoints, we have, sorry, it keeps not letting me, there we go. We have 3 monitoring stations. They aren't run by the checkpoint team, they are run by the safety team. There are 3 of them. They are all before big climbs on the course. So Malham Tarn down here is before Fountains Fell and Pennygent. Dufton is before the highest point. That's before you go up to Crossfell. And Burness, of course, is just before the Cheviots. So that last big push across the hills there to get to Kirk Yetholm. You don't have any access to drop bags in these monitoring stations. We do have hot water provisions there, so if you've got rat packs, you know, your dehydrated meals, then you can sort of stock up and get your calories in there, and hot drinks. And there's usually either some sweets or biscuits, but very, very limited. It's really just a brief stop, maximum stay of 30 minutes, quick turnaround. They are compulsory check-ins. They're not optional. They are compulsory check-ins, so please make sure you do visit them. All of them are indoors, with the exception of Burness in the summer, which is a gazebo, which will be outside the church in Burness. But there is still access to toilets a short walk away in the village hall. So we've got some unofficial race provided aid stations. They don't form part of the checkpoint team again, but I'm sure you'll all have been aware of them, at least of the presence of them. So Tan Hill Inn, it's roughly halfway along the course. Again, SST, the safety team, are stationed there 24/7 in winter. There's no duration limit at all to being in there, but there's not really anywhere to sleep. There's a stone, very cold floor and not very comfortable chairs. So whilst that sounds tempting, there's no duration limit. There's not an awful lot you can do. You can top up with a nice pub meal if you want to, if the pub is open. And again, hot water is available for dehydrated meals if you want. And then, of course, there's the famous Greg's Hut, which is just beyond the plateau of Crossfell. So whatever harsh time you've had going across there, there's noodles and a brew, or has been before. Whether it'll be continuing, we don't know. And I should say, all of this is, if someone's listening to this on YouTube, it's correct as of April 2026, but all sorts of things can change the logistics of the race. So it's always worth checking. In Greg's Hut, there's the noodles that John Bamber's famous for, and a brew. You can get your cup of tea there, but it is only in the winter. There's nothing in Greg's Hut in the summer. You can still access the bothy, but no provisions. And then finally, for these unofficial race-related aid stations, there's the 2 refuge huts on the Cheviots. One is 9 miles out of Burness, and the final one is 7 miles this side of Kirk Yetholm. Affectionately known as Hut 1 and Hut 2. There's a lot of rivalry between the two of them. They're really friendly teams. You can get yourself a hot drink, and to be honest, it's just a really nice little place to take a breath before you continue on what is a relatively long slog at that stage in the game. So you've probably all heard, there's a lot of unofficial aid stations. So these are what we refer to them as trail angels, really, people who live and work alongside the trail and are aware of the spine race, follow the runners, and they have a variety of provisions along the trail. Some of them are literally just a Tupperware box on the ground in the corner of a field, and it will just say, "Spiners, help yourselves, here's an honesty box." But others, like there's one at Hornistead, which I think Sharon is going to talk about later, but where the provisions are much, much greater. Now, the important thing here is we have no control about whether or when they are out there. So that, along with the fact that SST might be at roadheads, if you're doing a summer race and you're really hoping to get water supplies at roadheads, you may well find that SST are there, but they might need to deploy onto the hill for casualties. So if that's the case, they can't be there for water supplies. So the bottom line is, with the Trail Angel stuff and the SST at roadheads, plan everything as though they aren't going to be there. And then it's a lovely bonus if they are, but you're not then reliant on them. And then, of course, you've got shops and pubs available at their normal opening hours. So what can you expect from us? Well, first of all, respite from harsh trail conditions. And I will say, we can use that description of harsh conditions on the summer just as much as we can on the winter. It's not necessarily an easy ride weather-wise in the summer. We'll give you food and drink and a dry place to regroup, somewhere to sleep. You'll access your drop bags in the main checkpoints for supplies and replacement kit. And you'll have an opportunity to reset mentally. And I can't emphasize enough how important that is and how pivotal that is. You'll have access to medical care, and you might even get a hug if you'd like one. And just on the opposite opportunity to reset mentally, I'm sharing this with permission. This chap is called Tim Bradley. Some of you might know him. And I've just particularly put his pictures in because he came into the checkpoint in Bellingham on Challenger North, and he was distraught, and he'd had a really difficult time. He was, I mean, I'd go as far as to say quite a scary time on the trail. And when he came in, he wanted to DNF. He was, as you can see on that picture there with his feet in the bowl, he was deeply unhappy and absolutely intent on stopping. The picture on the right is after we'd sent him packing. We'd sort of, brought him round, given him a meal, given him some advice, and off he went. And this was him arriving in Burness, that picture on the right, really happy, and he went on to win the race. So what we can do in the checkpoints, don't underestimate it. The turnaround was all Tim's, he did that, and your turnaround in these checkpoints will be all you. But we can do an awful lot to facilitate that and to help you through. So what don't we provide? Foot care. That was a change a few years ago. We used to provide foot care via our medical team. We don't any longer. So you really need to know how to look after your own feet, both preventatively and in terms of treatment for blisters. When your feet are all macerated and wet, you need to understand how to care for them. We will have medics who, if you've got a particularly deep blister or you're concerned about infection or a wound on your foot, then we've got medics who, of course, will look at it. But the 99 times out of 100, they'll look at it and then just tell you to take your own feet. So it really is important that you understand how to look after them. Strategic decisions are all yours. We're not going to tell you, there are various rules, of course, mandatory kit that you have to follow, but we won't advise you on when to sleep, when to eat. That's all your decision. It's your race. And very importantly, alarm calls. You have to manage your own timings. We won't wake everybody up, and people have overslept. What we do try to do is, if we know that people are approaching their duration limit at the checkpoint, the 6 hours, we try and wake people up if we can see that approaching. But even that is not a given. So please be aware of that. So what do we expect from you? So clear communication with regards to your plans and your needs. Now, they don't need to be detailed. You may well come into a checkpoint cold and tired and feeling a bit grim. But we do need to know, are you going to come in, eat a meal, have some sleep, have a shower, or are you hoping to get in and out in 40 minutes? Are you wanting a pit stop turnaround, which we do try to facilitate a more intensive support level if you want to be in and out quickly. So just communicate that with us. We do expect you to be self-sufficient. We can offer support, but you need to be able to manage yourself. Of course, you need to have consideration for other runners. These checkpoints can get very crowded, so just be aware of the space around you and what other runners are needing as well as what you need. Politeness to the crew. They're all exhausted as well and are giving their time free. So please be polite to them. Tidy kit management is a big one, because you'll see on some of these pictures later on, you'll have athletes next to each other with drop bags right in front of them. And if you're not really tidy about the way you look after your kit in that checkpoint, if things kind of explode out of your bag, somebody inadvertently is going to pick up something of yours, and the repercussions of that can be really quite awful. So be very, very careful. And just a quick note to say, please dispose of your sharps in the sharps bin that are provided in the checkpoints. And batteries, any used batteries, you must put back into your drop bag to take away. So we expect you to try and have some patience and focus. This gets obviously more difficult the further up the course you get, but things like lists of your checkpoint tasks in your drop bags can be really helpful for that. And then really importantly, flexible onward travel plans. You all obviously enter the race hoping to be finishing at the finish line, and you have a vague idea of when that might be. But anything can happen to the newest and the most experienced of runners, and you need to have travel plans in terms of getting back off the trail wherever you end up. So please try and bear that in mind before you're actually on the trail. So cutoffs. Each location, support location, has an arrival cutoff and a separate departure cutoff. So please be aware of that. So for all the main CPs, Hebden Hey is an exception, but I'll talk about that in a sec. It's 30 minutes before the departure cutoff. So if you must arrive 30 minutes before the departure cutoff in order to stay in the race. Hebden Hey is the exception. For the full spine only, the Challenger South is the same as the rest, but for the full spine only in Hebden Hey, you have an arrival cutoff, which is actually 2 hours prior to the departure cutoff. So really bear that in mind. For the monitoring stations, so the Malham, Doveton and Burness, they have an arrival cutoff of 5 minutes before the departure cutoff, because obviously their duration span is only 30 minutes. And your cutoffs can change. For you personally, your cutoffs can change if you incur a penalty, and that's a really important point. This isn't something that's added on at the end of the race. This is something that will apply as you go along. So they're determined, the cutoffs, at we have two boundaries. One is the boundary to the checkpoint building or the checkpoint tent village in the summer, and the other is the grounds boundary. And I'm hoping that you can all see on here, we've got a grounds boundary down at the bottom. This is Bellingham as an example. And then we've got a checkpoint building boundary up at the in the quad of this checkpoint. This checkpoint building entrance is the point that you need to reach by the arrival cutoff. You are not considered to have made the cutoff if you arrive at the grounds boundary at that point. You have to have got up to the top. Likewise, you have to have left from the top, but you don't have to have made it past the grounds boundary in order to be classed as having made the departure cutoff. Very importantly, you can't stop in between these 2 points, in between the building entrance and the grounds boundary. You can, if you want to do further kit admin, if you've been chasing the cutoffs or you want to bivvy, it's got to be after that grounds boundary. So I hope all that makes sense. So penalties. There are all sorts of things that can give you penalties. These are the main ones: breaking rules, and the most common ones for that are receiving outside support, getting, having someone pace you, come and run with you for a little while, or bivvying on the trail without informing HQ. Another one is shortcuts, just inadvertently taking the wrong trail or the wrong turning and ending up slicing off a section of the trail so that you have a time benefit for having done that, or kit infringements. So how are they calculated? So if you break a rule, that's quite a hefty penalty. And I will say, we have eyes everywhere on this trail, so please respect that rule. Members of the public will even call in if they see someone sitting in a car and they can see they're on the spine. We have SST, we have crew who are out on walks and runs. Don't risk it. Just don't risk it. You'll get a 3-hour time penalty and you may get a yellow card. And if you have a yellow card, your next infringement can result in withdrawal from the race. So really, just don't risk it. If you have inadvertently taken a shortcut, we calculate that by looking at, so on this picture here, the red line is the spine race route. If you were to come off the trail, so inadvertently here, go along this blue route and therefore save yourself some time, what we do is calculate the time it takes you to get from A, the start of your shortcut, to B, the finish of your shortcut. And then we take other runners who are in the same cohort, so running broadly the same pace as you are, and we calculate the time it's taken them to get from A to B on the correct route. And then we take the difference between those two timings and then we double it. And we double it because we want to give you the penalty of the time that you have gained by taking that shortcut, but also you get a penalty for the fact that you've taken the shortcut. Otherwise, there would be you would just gain, fresher legs by taking shortcuts. So that's the way we work it out for shortcuts. Kit infringements, as with anything to do with kit, is all at Linley's discretion. There are many kit infringements and losses that will mean that you can't leave a checkpoint until the issue is rectified, and you can get a penalty of an hour per item. But please don't panic. We do a lot. Linley does a lot to help, and the checkpoint crew do a lot to help you. So you will have, every single race, we have crew who lend kit to runners, and the most important thing about that is if you do that, please get the details of the person who's lent you it so you can return it to them afterwards. You're notified as soon as we can possibly notify you of a penalty, either with SST on the trail or when you get to the next checkpoint. Because we need you to have plenty of notice about a penalty, we don't allow them to take effect until you've left the upcoming CP. So you could be, I don't know, 15 miles away from Hawes and be informed that you've got a 1 hour penalty, but we're not going to apply that to your arrival at Hawes. It's too late notice. So you'll come into Hawes, do all whatever you're going to do in Hawes, and it's only when you reach Langdon, Beck or Lowway, so the Middleton checkpoints, that would be applied, that your cut off at that next checkpoint would be shortened to the tune of that penalty. So an hour in that example. We do tell people around you of the penalty that you've got, and because particularly if it's going to change race strategy, if you're right at the front of the race, if it's a podium place, if it's very pivotal, people have been racing each other, we want to make sure that nobody else is disadvantaged by not knowing about that penalty. And they're often written on the boards in the checkpoints. So in summary, checkpoints are staffed by people who want you to succeed. That is our sole reason for being there. That's our only agenda, is to help you reach your goal. Very importantly, the way you manage your time with us in the checkpoints is down to you. Drop bag lists are very, very helpful for tired minds. Do not ever DNF on the way into a checkpoint. We can turn you around the vast majority of the time, and you will be amazed at what we can do to help you. Thanks very much.
Nikki, thank you. That was 100% clear. In fact, it was so clear that I've been checking Padlet and there are no questions at all. That was completely, and picking up on a couple of things you said there. And I mean, I think the first thing was that the people in the checkpoints are there to help everybody on this call have a successful race. And I think one of the joys of this call today is that you will actually now today meet an awful lot of the people who you will probably find in those checkpoints, which hopefully will make it feel a much more familiar place when you walk into them. I think the other thing, which is a sort of intro to Lindsay, who's going to take us through everything Edale, which includes kit and registration, is this is Lindsay and it's not Lindley. So yes. We talked about it on the WhatsApp group, but Lindsay is not going to give you any advice on what kit to bring. So those questions are definitely for Lindley. But Lindsay's here to take us through everything Edale, which I know is one of the almost as an athlete, the most scary bit of the whole thing. So Lindsay, would you mind just demystifying it for everyone and making it less scary?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, you've done your training, you've packed your bags, you're arriving at Edale or Hawes, and you can feel very overwhelmed by everything. Everything's new. You're either super excited, super nervous, or a mixture of the both. So we're there to help you through the process. We want you to be there ready on the start line, and we'll try our best to settle your nerves with a huge friendly welcome. We shall start with arriving at Edale from wherever you stay and for the night before, and I'll just share my slides with you. Okay, hopefully that's... Are you able to see that? Yeah. So yeah, arriving, you've stayed wherever you are the night before. Just to let you know that it gets very busy in the car park. So just give yourself enough time to find a space and a proper space, because there are traffic wardens and they will issue tickets. So just to make you aware. The signal's very poor in Edale Village Hall area. So just make sure that if you're paying, you can pay for parking in advance by using the Pay by Phone app, and the location numbers there, it's 806749. There is a pay machine, and I think it is just coins only. If you stop in there for 24 hours, I think it's like £11.80, but you might want to have a look on the Peak District website to double check. There are sometimes overflow car parks, but if you're leaving your car for a number of days and coming back to it after one of the races, don't leave it in the overflow because it might be locked and you won't be able to get back to your vehicle. Just to make you aware, there's no shelter or anywhere to go when you're there. So if you're taking your kit and wanting to repack it, you might want to think about where you're going to do that. You're not allowed to do that in the village hall or in the Peak Centre. We'll just make you'll have to find somewhere else to do that. In the last 2 winters, we've had snow, which has blocked the road. So the best way, give yourself plenty of time to come in. trains have been cancelled, roads have been blocked, and so you can come. Best way by road is to come via Hope. Is advisable, and obviously have a backup if the trains are cancelled as well. The official, if you want to share lifts from Castleton or wherever you're staying, have a look on the official lift sharing Spine page, which is on Facebook, and you can get in touch with other people that are doing the race. The youth hostel is about a mile away from the village hall, so you can either walk, which isn't going to be very pleasant with all those miles to get in your feet already. So there is a shuttle bus which does go to and backwards and forwards. You don't have to bring in your drop bag on the morning. If you prefer, you can leave your drop bag, a labelled drop bag, outside the youth hostel, but make sure it is outside the youth hostel and not left in the room, because the logistics won't be able to go into the accommodation and look for everybody's drop bag. So make sure it's there. And again, as Nikki said, just make sure you've got plans on how you're going to get back if you're leaving your car at Edale. So Edale registration, we have 2 sites. We have in the winter, it's up at the Peak Centre, and in the summer, it is all based at the Village Hall. So just to make you aware, there's no parking at the Peak Centre. So if you're driving up there with your kit, make sure somebody's dropping you off, and then they can go back down to the car park afterwards. Toilets, there are public toilets. They're on a timer and they open at 8 o'clock in the morning. And there are also 4 in the Village Hall and 1 up at the Peak Centre, just to make you aware of that. So, winter Peak Centre. We'll have a board outside usually telling you what you need to have ready. Then bring your kit, maybe in your pack. Make sure maybe in a box or in a bag, something, but don't forget your pack as well if you bring your kit in a box. Also, we'll ask you outside to get your GPS signal ready, because we can't get a signal in the hall very easily. Obviously, knowing your race number is good. If you know your grid coordinates, you might be asked that as a question. This is only a kit check, so you don't need to bring your drop bag up to the Peak Centre. That will be dropped off at the Village Hall whenever at a different time. Don't pack your bag neatly, because they're going to go through everything and check everything. And we have 2 tables through here, and we have our lovely volunteers that are going to be checking each of your kits. Linley does have needles and gas and some spares if you've misplaced something. And make sure you collect everything. You're so close to each other when you're going through all your kit. Sometimes somebody else might pick it up, or it gets left behind on the table. For example, somebody had very neatly wrapped up all their batteries with tape for all the equipment that they needed, and they'd left it on the table, and because they hadn't labelled the kit, we weren't able to return it back to them. Whereas sometimes if you've got your kit, if you've got your number or your name on your kit, we can look you up and give you a ring and tell you to come back and get it. You're given maps as well when you're there. That's got important information on the back as well, so you'll get those too. And then if you passed your kit check, you get the infamous stamp. And then you can move on to the next step, which is us registering you on the computers. So we'll check to make sure that you've done your medical forms. If not, we've got a computer where you can redo those. ID must be showed. It's one of the things that most people forget to bring. Either bring the original, or if you just take a photograph of it, that we can have a look at. ICE numbers will be checked. We'll take your picture, and then you must go down to the briefing. And the briefing is down at the Village Hall in the winter. And yeah, I know this is a lot to take in. So just remember, as you're going through the whole process, just breathe and relax. And we're there to help you. So depending on which race you're on, you can either drop your bag on the day, or if you want to take it home, drop your bag at the village hall, or if you still want to go through it again, then take it with you and bring it back in the morning. But for the sprint, the process is very different because you'll go through all of this at once. We have the tracker fitting in the village hall as well. We'd like you to test drive your tracker. Some people, you might find that it either rubs on their shoulders, it's in their eye line, which they don't want to have it there all the time when they're racing. So just come back and ask us and we can swap it over, move it about and make it more comfortable for you. So then we can fill your bottles if you need any of your packs filling. We can do those at the village hall as well. Summer registration, as I say, this is all based at the village hall, so you don't have to go up to the Peak Centre this time, and it's pretty much exactly the same process. So kit check this time is outside, registration is in the village hall, and again, think about where you're going to repack. There's no space indoors, so if it's hot, there's some shade under the trees, but if it's raining, there's very little shelter for you to go into. So here we have our registration. We've got the photo, you can get your photograph taken. We've got the media team in there as well. You can have a look, see where other people are in the races. And again, the briefing is across over by the start in a tent. So you must attend that. So drop bags and tracker fitting. So once you've dropped your drop bag off, either when you've done your registration or in the morning when you're coming to get your tracker fitting, once you've dropped your drop bag off, you won't be able to access it again because there's so many bags. They're just piled up on top of each other, and it's very difficult for logistics to get to them. One of the other things is people have packed all their bags and they've still got their car keys on them, and they think, oh, I need to put my car keys in my drop bag. So just remember what you're going to do with your car keys. Remember, it's 20 is plenty. If it's over 20 kilograms, you will be asked to remove your items. Now, they're not going to be taken up the course outside. You need to think about where you're going to put those. So where will those go? Are you going to donate them? Are you going to give them to a friend to go home? Just have a think. International bags will be dropped off at the same time as your drop bag, and again, they won't be returned to you until you've finished your race, wherever that might be. And again, so there is merchants. People are asking about merchandise. There is some at the start and there is some at the end as well. There is a long break when you do the sprint race. There is a big break between maybe getting your registration and your tracker process and the start of the race. So just think about how you're going to fill your time between registration and starting the race. And here we go, our winter start and our summer start. So we'll see you there. And that's me. And I think we're off to Chris now with Birchcliffe. So Chris, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. So Birchcliffe is one of the most exciting places to get to, because if you've entered the sprint, Birchcliffe is your finish, and you've done it. You've made it 46 miles up the Pennine Way. When you come into Hebden Bridge, you follow the signs through Hebden Bridge. There is a bit of a disappointment of a very steep hill just before you get to the Birchcliffe Centre, but we'll be out there waiting for you, and we will bring you through. Don't stop on the steps, come all the way through into the finish arch, so that we can give you your medal, and then we can give you your T-shirt and your certificate when you come inside the building. Your supporters can wait outside for you and cheer you in quietly, because it's a residential area. And we do have a room in another building where your supporters can wait if it's very cold, or I mean, they're probably best in the pub until 11, but once you're coming, then they can wait for you in the room whilst you're getting some food, maybe getting dry shoes on, whatever you feel the need to do. Not all sprint runners take a drop bag. That's entirely up to you. If you're being met, you may feel that you don't need one, but I would say that a change of shoes is going to be bliss. So just think about that. When we've given you your medal and we take you up into the Birchcliffe Centre, we'll ask you to take your shoes off and any wet outdoor clothing, and then we can take you down into the hall for something to eat and drink. We've got pasties, nice hot pasties, soup, drinks. That's about it. It's a finish of a race, so you don't need a running buffet. But when you're in there, you may feel that with your supporters there, that you want to get straight off. So we can give you a drink at just by the entrance, and we can put a nice warm pasty in a bag. So, the Greggs of Hebden Bridge is the Birchcliffe Centre on that night only. And then you can take time to change. There are single-sex toilets, so you can change there. There are no shower facilities, but you've got somewhere to change into dry clothes and get something to eat, chat about the highs and lows with your running buddies, and then usually people who are there in the sort of late hours of Saturday, maybe the very early hours of Sunday, quite often have a lift. But if you don't have a lift, don't worry, because it's an old chapel. You can see on the slide we've got pews. They're not comfortable, but they're there. They're indoors. They're not too cold. If you think that you might want to put your sleeping bag out and sleep until 6:30 in the morning, then make sure you do pack your drop bag ready. And I would recommend a mat as well, because there's nothing soft about those pews. So you can get some sleep, and then we'll ask you to leave by 8 o'clock in the morning. The cut-off is 6 o'clock for the race, but we'll give you till 8 o'clock. If you're there for hours, we're not going to turn up with the breakfast, I'm afraid. We might give you another cup of tea, but it's just somewhere to make do until you can get your transport home. Obviously, if you've got family, the children are sleeping, you don't want them to come and pick you up too early. But, aim for 7:30, and then you can go on your way. Make sure you remember to take your certificate and your T-shirt. And that's it. You've finished your race. Well done. That's fantastic.
Chris, would you mind just confirming, you've talked about the Greggs. Is there vegan and vegetarian options on the food?
Yes. So, as far as hot drinks go, we usually have tea, coffee, dairy, oat and soya. We usually have some squash. And then as far as pasties go, we definitely have vegetarian. We should have some vegan. It may not be a pasty, but there will be a vegan offering of food for sure. And the soups, we make all the soups are homemade, and they're vegan, vegetarian. So we had a choice of 3 soups in the winter. It might be 2 in the summer, but they'll all be there for you. And yeah, don't worry, you will definitely get fed.
Thank you, Chris. And would you just confirm, we've had a question about finish line bags, but for the sprint, it's their drop bag, and therefore if they want any extra stuff, it has to be in that drop bag before the race, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, because they don't have another checkpoint in between the start and the finish. So they are literally setting off with their race pack, and they've got no access to anything else officially until they get to the finish at Birchcliffe.
And then, Chris, a question's come in about showers at Birchcliffe, and apparently there used to be showers. Don't know, but is that changed?
That has changed. There used to be showers, but we've found that really, to keep us the same as many other races, not many races were providing showers, and it was felt unnecessary to do that. There's private space to change. You can go into the ladies' loos and change in there and wash in there. So you have got space to completely change your clothing if you're wet or dirty.
Thank you. That's absolutely fab. I can't see any more questions on this right now, Chris, for you. But again, just to great for anyone taking part. Unless you're doing the Spine Sprint South, you shouldn't be seeing Birchcliffe. So it is only the Spine Sprint South. And so we're now going to move on with Gabby and Gina to talk about Hebden Hey, which is the next checkpoint for everybody else other than Spine Sprint South. Thank you so much, Chris.
Hi everybody, so Gabby and I will take you through Hebden Hey. So as Anna said, unless you are on the sprint, you shouldn't see Birchcliffe at all. If you do, you've gone the wrong way. As you come off Stoodley Pike, there will be signs directing the sprinters off to the right, and everybody else will carry on their way up the trail towards Hebden Hey. As we go through this presentation, we will refer to building 1 and building 2. As you can see from the picture there are 2 buildings and different things happen in each building. So if you were on the Challenger South, the MRT Challenger South, or the Full Montane Spine Race, you will come and this will be your first checkpoint. As Nikki said in her presentation, self-sufficiency is really, really important, and that is vital at Hebden. You will have just done 46 miles. You will have probably arrived in the dark, definitely in the dark at winter, and Hebden is very, very busy. So you need to have your plan of what you're going to do, and you need to be thinking about that drop bag etiquette. It's really, really important here. But we'll take you through, and hopefully after this it will all become clear. So as I said, you will come off of Stoodley Pike, the sprinters will turn off, it will be signposted, and you will carry on down to Hebden Hey. Now, just before the checkpoint, you will turn off of the main Pennine Way and you will take a right. It will be signposted, there will be arrows directing you, and there will be little red flags again directing you. You will come off of the road and you will come down, not necessarily a steep hill, but it can be muddy, it can be wet, it can be icy, and it's not particularly nice, but it's the spine race. So you will come down that hill and you will come into the checkpoint. As we've said, you must go to every checkpoint. And when you arrive, you will see some more arrows directing you in to where you need to go.
So as Gina's already been sort of setting you up, you sort of come into Hebden Hey through a phenomenally awkward sort of like set of steps. Are you going to hate those steps? But those steps are actually quite important because Nikki was talking about the significance of the boundary markers. So the boundary markers for Hebden Hey are not outside the building, they're like up on the top of the steps. So remember the long climb into the actual checkpoint, because you're going to have to climb back out, leaving yourself enough time. Now, this slide is there just to make a couple of points again. Maximum stay at Hebden Hey is 6 hours. But because it's the first checkpoint on the full spine, you do have to meet an extra tough cut-off point. So you actually have to be there 2 hours earlier than the actual sort of like cut-off point. So just feature that sort of like into your actual sort of arrival time. The other thing about Hebden Hey is it's opposite nowhere near Hebden Bridge. So when you see Hebden Bridge and you think, woohoo, I've arrived. No, you got at least another couple of miles to go, and they'll be the longest couple of miles you'll have done all sort of like day. The other thing to bear in mind is Hebden Hey as checkpoint 1, both on the full spine but also on the 2 sort of Challenger South. It's the final checkpoint that gives you access to the drop bag before the longest stretch anywhere on the Pennine Way, anywhere on the actual kind of like spine race. So Hebden Hey is mission critical, because you're facing at least, for most runners, 24, 26 hours without getting into another kind of checkpoint. So really have a plan when you actually come to sort of like Hebden. So when you do that, it's quite a complicated site with its kind of like several buildings. you've obviously got a timeline. You sort of like think what you're going to do in the checkpoint, what you need from the checkpoint. You've got access to the drop bag. All of those sort of like bits and pieces are there. One of the things to think about, we've alluded to it on a number of occasions, before you leave the checkpoint, you actually have to go through another sort of kit check. This one, for most runners, is not at the same scale as the kit check you're going to experience in Edale, but that kit check is a very, you can't leave before you've actually done the kit check. And again, Nikki emphasized this, the kit is not there as a kind of like punishment. So you're taking your sort of sunglasses and Phuket around the Pennine Way for a laugh. These are really important pieces of equipment, and as you get more and more tired, the kit check at the actual kind of like checkpoints will just make sure that you remember you've got that stuff in the bag, and will nudge you to actually, you know, it's cold, put an extra layer on, use them, those kinds of like things. So that timeline might help you to sort of think about some of the things which we're expecting you to do. But let's talk you through the kind of process. So when you sort of turn off the Pennine Way and you come towards Hebden Hey, you will find a volunteer who's actually going to walk you in the sort of like final bits. We'll have been tracking your progress, and the volunteer will actually walk you to a seat in one of the 2 rooms used to welcome athletes, where you will immediately have access to your kind of like drop bag. We will also ask you on arrival about your sort of like plan. Again, do you want to go through fast, or do you actually want to sleep? Do we need to, for example, check you in and actually assign you a dorm? So there's sort of like various kind of processes there. So it helps the volunteers enormously if you have a plan, and then tell us the plan and we can help you to sort of like execute that. We will take the poles off you. They get everywhere. Label them, store them. So actually remember to take them sort of away at the sort of end at the end as well. And you will immediately be asked if you need a hot beverage, which most people do because it gets quite cold even in the summer. There's heating throughout Hebden Hey. Is warmish, but it's a cold stone building. And remember that building 1 and building 2 Gina was talking about. You'll have to move between them. And to get from building 1 to building 2, you have to go back outside. So you'll definitely need kind of like a couple of layers and sort of like shoes. But on arrival, volunteer will meet you, march you to the kind of like athlete's room. You'll be reunited with your drop bag, and then you can sort of like think about sort of some of your needs. For most of the athletes, those needs will actually sort of focus on food, and they'll focus on foot care, and they'll focus on kind of like sleep. So this is a kind of photo of the room when it's empty. Now imagine how full and how cramped and crowded this room gets when it's actually sort of like full. Each kind of athlete will have a chair. The chair next to them is empty to give space for the bag, but it gets really, really sort of like busy. So again, we've said it before and it'll be said again. Look after your kit, label your kit, keep your kit close, avoid any kind of like drop back sort of like explosions. There's a little kitchen in this kind of like room. The volunteers will kind of like come and offer you a beverage. They'll refill your flasks. Please let the volunteers do that and don't follow them into the kitchen. There is hot drinks flying around. People are moving. You just stay put and sort your feet out. We will bring the drinks to you. Food and sleep and everything is in a different building. So if you then want to leave, I'll ask you to sit the drop bag up, shove it under your chair, go into the other building, do what you sort of like need to do. Volunteers will also assign you a space in a dorm. Where we can, we'll make them single sex, but there'll come a point in the middle of the night where if there's a bed, we'll shove somebody in it, and any sort of like carefully planned sort of great sort of schemes to keep them single sex will just go out of the window. So again, be flexible and sort of like expect that. The food, we can't carry food back and forth. You have to go and get your own food. So you leave building 1, you will go into building 2. There's a dining room. In the dining room is a hatch. there is a kind of like menu, which at Hebden Hey traditionally consists of chicken and rice. There'll be some sort of vegetarian pasta, usually some lentil bolognese or something along those lines. Again, soup, we're big on soup. And then a range of biscuits and crisps and various kind of like sweet options. There's Coke, flat, fizzy. There's sort of like squash there. This is a good sort of like basic menu. You'll certainly be able to replenish most of the calories you have lost on the Pennine Way up to sort of like Hebden Hey. But what Hebden Hey and most of the checkpoints will struggle with is to accommodate any requests for bespoke food. So if there's something really specific you need, it might be much quicker for you to simply bring along a dehydrated meal and sort of like look after yourself that way. There really is no scope to serve people with full English breakfast with black pudding and please can I have poached eggs. It's not going to work. Hebden Hey's busy because everybody who starts the spine, once they're started, whether it's the Challenger South or the full spine, if they DNF because the drop bag has already sort of gone forward, they'll end up at kind of like Hebden Hey. So everybody who starts actually ends up in Hebden Hey as well. So imagine the kind of like volume of people actually sort of like cramming into that space. So there will be plenty of food, but if none of these food options appeal, you'll be make alternative plans. As regards the accommodation, it's quite luxurious actually, you know, for a kind of like spine checkpoint. There are 4 rooms upstairs, many steps involved. Couple of the rooms have 6, there's an 18, a 16, a 6 and a 4, so they're kind of like in various sizes, and what you see on the actual slide is what you get. You'd just be faced with a kind of like bed with a sort of bare blue plastic kind of like mattress, so there's no bedding provided, so you're going to be responsible for bringing your own sleeping bag, a pillow if you need it. We've seen people change in their pajamas. I mean, fair play. Bring your hot water bottle. You're 6 hours, you might as well use the space, but that's what you're sort of like being provided with. It's busy and it's noisy. Can you imagine 16 people in a dorm, their legs hurt, they might already be in considerable digestive distress. They'll be groaning, they'll be moaning, they'll be snoring. Bring your earplugs, probably one of the most important sort of like spine accessories. And as we've already said, you're going to be responsible for managing your own kind of like sleeping time. We won't sort of like wake you up, but as sleeping goes, Hebden Hey is not a bad place to actually get some sleep. So what we've got on the next slide is just a summary of the sort of like facilities. There are no drying rooms at Hebden Hey. There's a fire, but whether that's going to dry your clothes, who knows. There's also many people trying to get access to the same kind of like facilities. There's limited access to electrical sockets. It certainly helps if any sort of access to sockets you need, if you've labeled your cords and you've labeled your head torch and you've labeled your power banks, so nothing gets kind of like mixed sort of like up. Mobile phone signal is not great at Hebden Hey, but there is kind of like Wi-Fi. But please also do remember you're going to have a charge of at least 50% of your mobile phone before you actually sort of like leave a checkpoint. So it's got to be a priority to sort the sort of like phones out. Trackers, they're heavy. They do sometimes need repositioning, but please, as an athlete, never touch your own tracker. Ask the checkpoint staff, and the checkpoint managers will actually sort the kind of like trackers out for you. And obviously we've already referred to that, to that medics are in attendance, but they're not going to tape your feet, however much you kind of like try and sort of like whimper and plead with them. They're going to be looking after the sort of more significant sort of support needs. So please learn how to look after your feet. Gina, over to you.
Thank you. So as we've said, as you're leaving your checkpoint, it's really important to plan ahead and think about the next section. As we've mentioned, the section between Hebden and Hawes or Hardraw is a very long section. It's 68 miles. and there's very little in between that. There is the monitoring point at Malham, but that's 40 miles. So it's really important that you spend your time at the checkpoint planning, not only what you're doing now, but what you're going to do for the next leg, and make sure you've got everything that you need. Every checkpoint will have an information board in the rooms, and it will tell you what the food is. It will tell you any information, weather conditions. So really the next big point on the second leg is Fountains Fell and then Pen y Ghent. So this one's telling you about the weather conditions and that it's 40 miles to Malham Tarn. So just take a note, any information will be on there. They can get really busy, the checkpoints, and there's lots of people, you know, what's the weather, what's this, what's that. So just take a minute to look at the board. Everything that you need will be on there, and it's updated half hourly, hourly, especially in winter when the weather's changing by the minute. So that will be the most up-to-date information that you can have. We spoke about the boundaries, and just to reiterate a little bit with Hebden, you do have to go down a hill to get into Hebden Hey, so you have to go up a hill to get out. When you arrive, the volunteer will write down your time, and when you leave, the volunteer will write down your time. So we have a record of that. But as Nikki said, just leaving the checkpoint building is not quite enough. So if you need to do some kit faff, which you won't, you will have to go up the hill before you can stop. So just be aware that once you leave the checkpoint, any checkpoint, just keep moving until you get far enough away, few hundred meters, whatever it is, and then you can stop, bivvy, sort your feet, do your laces, whatever it might be. So it's just really, really important to remember that. And then finally, what's available between Hebden and Hawes or Hardraw? Not that much, and none of it's guaranteed. Even the co-op at Gargrave, if you arrive at 5 a.m, it's not going to be open. So again, it's important to plan ahead and think about what there is and what you're going to need for that section, especially the really long one, which is section 2. That's it for Hebden Hey. Any questions?
Yes, there is one question. Sorry, Gina, I couldn't get my mic to turn on. Question around beds. What happens when they get to Hebden if there isn't a bed?
So beds, people generally sleep for maybe 2 hours. People are not generally in there for 4, 5, well, the 6 hours. They're just not. Beds do come available quite quickly. You can sleep on the floor. There's corridors, so people have put sort of bivvied in the corridor, but generally there are beds available. There's about 40, what was that, about 42 beds or something, and a lot of the sharp end of the race don't sleep, but beds do turn around quite quickly, and generally we might just say, you know, we'll call you when one's available. 10 minutes later a bed will come up, so we can say there's a one available and you can go up there, and there'll be the person at the front desk, normally is the bed person as well, so they'll know who's coming in and out and how many beds are free.
Thank you. And I mean, I think the other thing, from an athlete perspective, that board that you showed with the weather and with all the information, I mean, sometimes it's almost worth taking a photo of that as you walk in. But I think the other thing to flag is that board often will also have further up the course any potential route deviations on it, won't it? Or diversions being put in place. And that can change too. So I know I've been in a position where people have said there's a diversion in place, and by the time I'm actually going up the course, that diversion has gone because maybe ice has melted, whatever it might be. So I think that is the Bible though, isn't it? As you leave that checkpoint, that is the Bible.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was really brilliant. Thank you, Gabby and Gina. I think if everyone who's listening, if there's one major takeaway, it's Hebden can be unbelievably busy, and it's also absolutely critical in some ways to the success of your race as the athlete. because if you walk in there and you don't get done what you need to get done, that next section is incredibly long, and it's where lots and lots of people do fall apart. So arrive in Hebden with a plan and execute your plan, and just be very self-sufficient, because if you're self-sufficient, if it's chaotic, you'll be able to cope. But I think Hebden is almost one of those checkpoints. Once you're beyond Hebden, life gets calmer. But I think Hebden can be that moment where it just feels quite overwhelming. So if you're mentally prepared for that, the team will help as much as possible, but it can be really busy. Thanks, Gabby and Gina. I think we're now going to move up the course, and Sophie's going to take us through Hawes and Hardraw.
Yes, I'm just going to get the presentation up and my notes. So, welcome to Hawes and Hardraw. It's a slightly complicated checkpoint. It is the finish of the Challenger South, checkpoint 2 for the full spine race, and the start of the Challenger North. I will be focusing mainly on the details for the Challenger South finish and the checkpoint 2 for the full spine race. I won't cover registration in detail for the Challenger North because the process is the same as it is at Edale. Linley comes up the course and he runs the registration exactly the way he runs it down at Edale. In the summer, this will be held in Marquee in Hardraw, where the checkpoint is based. There's only one location. And in the winter, it's in the function room at the Green Dragon. So the cut-off times for Hawes and Hardraw are 60 hours to reach the checkpoint. It's 108 miles to Hawes and 111 miles to Hardraw. After that big long slog from Hebden Hey, you're going to be really tired. So we're going to be a sight for your sore eyes for sure. For the summer race, for the Challenger South, sorry, both summer and winter, the checkpoint cutoff is 8 p.m. on the Monday, and for the full spine, it's 8 p.m. on the Tuesday. If you're doing the MRT, it's 8:30 for the Challenger South, because it starts half an hour later.
Sophie, sorry to interrupt you. Have you got slides that you're hoping people can see?
Oh, yes. Can you not see that?
We can't at the moment. So do you want to have 2 minutes? Just...
Yes. No, here it is. Have you got that now? It says it's sharing.
I can't see it at the moment, Sophie.
Let me try something else. No,
While Sophie's doing her slides, just a quick reminder to everyone, if questions go into the Padlet, I will try and pick them up as we go through. And I think at the moment, we've pretty much got all of them. So anybody else, please.
I don't seem to have the option. It's telling me that the presentation is starting, but it is not.
Okay, well, if you carry on, Sophie, I'll try and get hold of Eleanor and see if she can help get that sorted out for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I can always post you the link, and then somebody else could share them for me.
Yeah, pop it in the and Gabby or somebody who has been able to share so far will do that, definitely.
Yeah, Sophie, sorry, you are down as a co-host. I don't really know how to change a setting to make you can.
No, I think it might have frozen actually.
So if you don't, do you need them? Because if not, we can always share them later.
No, absolutely. I've popped it in the link, Anna. So if somebody else can share them, that would be great. But I'll carry on talking anyway.
Thank you.
So on the full spine race, you're allowed 6 hours in the checkpoints for both summer and winter. But thank you. So I'm on the second slide there. Perfect. Thank you. You must arrive at least 30 minutes prior to the cutoff to allow time to register at the checkpoint and do mandatory kit check before leaving. So if you're chasing the cutoffs, volunteers will do everything in their power to help you turn that time around quickly if you're very close to that cutoff. But bear in mind, this is a self-sufficient race, so you're responsible for getting yourself in and out that checkpoint in the right way. You've got 34 miles in the summer to the next checkpoint and 42 in the winter at Langdon Beck. So I'll go to the next slide. So there are 3 different locations in Hawes and Hardraw between winter and summer. So for the full spine, you will go to Hawes YHA. For the Challenger South, you will go to, in winter, you'll go to Hawes Market Hall. And in the summer, you will go to the Marquee in Hardraw for the Challenger South finish and checkpoint 2 on the spine. The winter locations are a short way off the Pennine Way, and the Hardraw location is located right on it. You can't miss it. All will be marked with big spine flags and banners, so they're pretty easy to find. When you arrive in Hawes, you are taken round the back of the church. It's really important that you follow the GPX file to get to the checkpoint and to the finish of the Challenger South for the winter race. People have been disqualified in the past for following the road round and going the wrong way. So it's really, really important that you make sure that you do follow that to the checkpoint. If you're on the full race, you will pass the Challenger South finish, where you'll see all the camaraderie of that race, and carry on down to the Hawes YHA. Next slide. So when you arrive at the Hawes YHA, you will be greeted by a volunteer at the door. They will have already located your drop bag and taken it to a chair. The volunteer will take any wet clothes and shoes to the drying room. I would advise you to make sure that there are labels on your things. They will also take your poles off you unless you collapse them. This is because otherwise they stick out and they risk getting broken or tripping up a volunteer. The checkpoint at Hawes YHA can get very busy from Monday evening into Tuesday morning. So that kind of midnight to 8 AM time is really, really busy. So be mindful of that when you're arriving. For the Challenger South finish, you'll be greeted by a volunteer outside the building and handed your finisher's medal. There'll normally be a group of volunteers gathered there to cheer you on, whatever time of the day or night that you arrive. The same system will apply. Your drop bag will already been taken to a chair and you'll be directed there. In the summer races, you will arrive in Hardraw. Usually a volunteer will meet you a little way up the road and then walk you the final bit into the tent. If you're doing the Challenger South, you'll be handed your finisher's medal. Looks like a spine checkpoint. I get handed a cup of tea. The same situation will apply if you are in the full race. You'll be taken to your drop bag, which has already been placed by a chair. It can be busy at this checkpoint because you've got the start of the Challenger North, the finish of the Challenger South, and checkpoint 2 of the spine. So there's lots of people coming and going. So there's lots and lots of facilities at Hawes and Hardraw, and there's some that are shared and some that are very specific to those locations. So if you're doing the full spine and you're at Hawes YHA, you have a drying room, access to charging, hot and cold food, and changing there. But what I would say about charging facilities is that you're better off bringing a power bank because you might not be able to access them all the time. There is a finite amount of plugs that people can get to, and you don't want to risk not charging your thing. So try and be as self-sufficient as possible. To access a bed, you will need to speak to a volunteer. They will allocate you a bunk and take you to the bed, which will likely be up some stairs. They are quite tiring after a long 108 miles, but you just drag yourself up there and get some rest. We can't guarantee single-sex rooms, much like Hebden Hey. We do try our best to start off that way, but again, once it becomes busy, we have to just give people what beds are available. You're not allowed to take your drop bag with you to the bunk. This has to be cleanly packed away and handed to a volunteer before you go and have a sleep. I would advise you to take a tote bag to put all your little bits and pieces in to take into the bedroom with you so you don't lose anything. It saves you accidentally like dropping your toothbrush on the floor or something like that. At the winter checkpoint the Winter Challenger South finish, you'll be reunited with your drop bag. Here you can access hot and cold food. You won't be hurried away, but do remember that it does get busy at the end, so you might be asked to move further into the hall just to make space for new finishers. For the summer races, the checkpoint is in the marquee at Hardraw. So this means the facilities are all temporary, so you've got portaloos there and can be a little bit limited. The temperature inside the tent is incredibly weather dependent. So if we've got a lovely dry day, it will be very warm in the tent. If there's a wind blowing, it can be freezing in the tent. We do our best to keep the sides down to make sure that if there is any wind, you're as sheltered as possible. But do bear that in mind, that you might want to have some layers in your drop bag on the summer race. If you wish to sleep, you need to go to a volunteer who will allocate you a tent. These are single tents. You're not going to be sharing them with anyone, and you can take your drop bag with you into those tents. There can be a small wait at busy times, but as Gina said, for Hebden Hey, most people don't sleep for more than a few hours, so we can normally rotate through them quite quickly. All of the checkpoint locations here have 4G coverage on all networks, and a dedicated team of medics based at the checkpoints to help you out. As like everyone else has said, they don't deal with blisters and things, but they can help you if things are a little bit more difficult or you need some advice. If you're sleeping, it is your responsibility to make a note of where you are against the cutoffs. Set an alarm so you don't oversleep. The volunteers cannot guarantee that they can wake you. As at Hebden, we do try and keep an eye on how long people have been in the checkpoint. We make a note of people's arrival times, but once it's busy, it's very difficult for us to make sure that you have all the time you need. So make sure you set that alarm. No participants can enter any of the kitchen spaces at any of the checkpoints. So if you need anything, so soft flask filling or a cup of tea or anything, please ask the volunteers to do that, and also let them know if you have any specific dietary needs. Next one, please. So food and drink at Hardraw. There is quite a large selection at both locations. So all will have cold drinks, so things like orange and blackcurrant squash, which you can have hot or cold. Yorkshire tea, including decaf, coffee, including decaf, Coke, flat and fizzy, hot water or cold water. Hot and cold food is available. So it's usually something like a chili, but it can change depending on the time of day and what we have. There will normally be rice or pasta, which will include things like gluten-free pasta to make sure dietary requirements are taken care of. There will usually be also some kind of pudding option like rice pudding or maybe even cake and custard. There'll be a table in the checkpoint, all of the checkpoints, that will have snacks on, so things like fruit with bananas, biscuits, crisps, and sometimes other racers leave their nutrition that they no longer use due to being withdrawing or just having too much. Take them at your own risk, but sometimes there is some useful things there. When the checkpoint isn't overrun, the kitchen can make some lighter options for you. So things like scrambled eggs, toast, porridge. But the checkpoint volunteers will tell you if this isn't possible due to how busy the kitchen is at that point. But we do try and accommodate those kind of light breakfasts if we can. And then when you're leaving the checkpoint, if we can move to the next slide. When you leave the checkpoint, there's some admin. So you'll be asked to show a number of things from the mandatory kit check. These things will inevitably be at the bottom of your bag, so don't be too precious about packing it all neatly until you've been through that final kit check as you're trying to leave. Once kit check is passed, your drop bag will be taken away and you'll no longer be able to access it. If you do need to access it again, you will have to go through kit check again. There is a board at the entry exit of Hawes and Hardraw checkpoints. Here you will see the distance to the next checkpoint, the weather, any messages about diversion from HQ. Please do check it thoroughly. It's really, really important that you have all of those noted before you leave. What I would say about the weather is it's still really important that you're self-sufficient and that you have a way of checking the weather as you're moving through the course, because it does change quickly. If you've handed things into the drying room or relinquished your poles, make sure you have them. You won't be the first, and I'm certain you won't be the last to get 2 miles up Shunnafell to realise you've left something behind. Navigation is super important as you leave the checkpoint. Make sure you know where you're going and check regularly while you're leaving. Last year, we had a participant leave Hawes and go in the wrong direction for 2 hours before they realised and turn around. So it can happen even to the most experienced runners. So please do make sure you're checking that. Last of all, thank you to all the wonderful volunteers. They're really heavily invested in you as runners and getting you to the end of your race. A little kind word from you as you leave the checkpoint really goes a long way. If you're in the unfortunate position that you need to withdraw at Hawes or Hardraw, you need to be aware of onward travel. The nearest train station is Garsdale, which is away. There's a very infrequent bus service that runs and a few taxi options, but you will need to make sure you know what to do if you're in that position. If you're lucky, you might be able to get a lift with a fellow participant or even a volunteer, but that cannot be guaranteed. So do make sure that you have a plan for that. So what's between Hawes and Langdon Beck? So there isn't much. There are 3 options. So there is Keld Village Hall Honesty Box. So that's 122 miles in after Great Shunnafell. You'll have access to a dry floor as well as some food and drink. There's a kettle so you can have a warm drink or rehydrate food. It's about 500 meters off the route, but it is a good option if you feel like you need shelter after Great Shunnafell. Tan Hill is just a couple more miles up the road, 126 miles into the route. There is usually an option to purchase soup or some hot drink. And if you arrive during pub opening hours, they'll have the full menu on offer for you. There is always a safety team located here in the back room. And I have to disagree with Nikki here. They have a ferociously hot underfloor heating in that back room, which is quite good for drying wet kit and wet people. Clove Lodge is at 137 miles and you'll be hosted by the wonderful Mr. Nibbles, the friendliest cat on the Pennine Way. Here you can find a kettle and a microwave along with assorted drinks and snacks. And I'm pretty certain Mr. Nibbles will sit on your lap if you want him to. Be sure to give a donation if you're using these facilities. They're all run by kind individuals, and the more we can help support them, the likely they are to stay there for the next years to come. And final reminder, if you're going to be stopped at any of these places for more than 30 minutes, call or message Race HQ. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Sophie. There's just one question really, which is around sleeping in the tents if you're a Challenger South finisher. Are you allowed to do that, or do you only keep those for full spiners?
It depends. It's never a straightforward answer, is it? If you finish and there isn't many full spine runners, you will be able to use the tents, absolutely. Once it gets really full with full spine runners, we will have to prioritize the tents for those people. But you won't be kicked out of the main marquee. We will find a space for you to be comfortable. But yes, unfortunately, we have to prioritize the full spine races.
That's awesome. That was the only additional question, Sophie. It's quite a complex mix of aid stations at
yes.
Hardraw, just because it is different winter to summer. Although I can say, as an athlete, it's really well marked and it's really very obvious. So even if it looks complex on the slides, when you're actually doing it on the ground, it's not. And it's just really easy in the summer, although it is pretty much completely outside. So that's the only drawback.
It is. I think the summer, even though the summer's warmer, the summer checkpoint is less comfortable.
Yeah. And you may as well just get up Shunnerfell. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you ever so much. That is great. We're now going to head on up the course, and next up is Jen O'Neill, who's going to take us through what isn't the Middleton checkpoints. She's going to take us through the difference between summer and winter as well.
Hello, so here we go. See if I can do this. Share the screen. Are we going? We good?
Yeah, you're good, Jen.
All right, okay, sorry. I heard nothing. All right then. So I'm going to give you just a quick overview of the look and feel of our checkpoints. A lot of the processes and advice you've had so far are consistent all the way up the course. Sophie particularly gave you lots of snippets there. If I breeze over something, because I think it's already been covered, it's on the slide, so hopefully you'll get that information. I just want you to know that there are friendly faces all the way up the course. You're seeing some of them today. And in an event where there are so many variables and things that you can't control, at least if you know what to expect at a checkpoint, this is something that shouldn't take you by surprise. So we are, I think, the only checkpoint 1, 3, that has different venues, completely different locations in the summer and the winter. And because summer is imminent, I'm going to start with summer. We are based at Lowway Farm in Upper Teesdale, which is pretty much bang on the Pennine Way. And I'm selfish, but I think I'm a little bit particular. I think this is the most idyllic spot on the Pennine Way in good weather. But it's not in Middleton. It's 2.5 miles along the trail. And every event, it upsets people, and they get really, really confused, and they wonder where the checkpoint is, and they arrive and it is. So remember, it's not in Middleton. The checkpoint itself is on the Pennine Way, but do not cross the grass. I'm going to try and just get rid of that. There, so it's not in the way. Sorry about that. Do not cross the grass. It's not that there's landmines there, but it is a protected hay meadow, and there are signs and there are little flags that will direct you along the trail. There's Lizzie Faithful Davies being very well behaved. You will get to the stile, which is signed, and you'll head over that and into the field and along over to the checkpoint. So this is a nice bird's eye view, and you can pretty much see where everything is based in the checkpoint. At the top, there's the athletes' tents. That's where you'll sleep. Behind the tree is actually where the volunteers sleep. Their tents and cars will be there. There are toilets on the back of the building where the arrows point. There's a water tap for drinking water. We do not have showers, and this disappoints everybody every year. No matter what a well-meaning SST team member might tell you as they see you as you're coming off the hills in between Tan Hill and Middleton, there are not showers, but there are places where you can get a wash. You can see if you come through on the track out into the field, I've called it the picnic area. Pretty much everything at this checkpoint happens outside if the weather's good. You can see the drop bags are there, and then the access into the main room, it's the dining room. And the bunkhouse, if you don't want to sleep in a tent, is up the steps just outside the building there to the right-hand side. As I said, everything's outside. So it's like a mini spine fest when the weather's good. Eat, feet, rest, recharge and refill. This is sort of a decent number of people at the checkpoint, but when we get to peak Challenger North, there'll be 40, possibly more athletes there, and it can get very, very busy. So we do have charging facilities in the building, but as Sophie said, it's best to be in control for yourself. Bring a power bank. There's some people doing some of the things that you need to do on the grass. I'm not saying that Katie's a mug. I'm pointing out that you need your mug. And if you want to have a drink as soon as you arrive, hot or cold, then it's best to have it handy, because we have plates, we have cutlery, etc., but we don't have mugs. check out those little sliders that Fiona's got, and those tights and Ali's filling up her camelback. Bags are outside. Kit check will be outside on the grass or just outside the front of the building. We'll store poles outside. That is, as you probably heard or may have suspected, we're an outdoor checkpoint until it gets a bit overcast or it's calm. It starts to get dusk and it's dark. There are midges. And that's me down by the river, pulling a stupid face with my head net on. They're all along the river if the conditions are right. So be prepared, have a head net. You can get hand nets, they're pretty funky. Have your repellent handy. And that probably applies for a lot of the course, maybe at Hardraw, Hawes, at Middleton, all the way through, and then further up the course as well. If it's windy, brilliant. There's no midges, but that brings other challenges. Last summer, just to give you an idea of how bad the weather can get, our Coleman shelters, you saw everybody sitting under in the last slide. They got torn to bits by gusts, such strong gusts of wind that blew up the Dale. We'll be working out what we're going to have in to replace them this summer. So at night, or when the weather's bad, we all retreat indoors. And this is the space we go into, and it actually looks quite a decent size here. This is from the other angle. It's not that big, because the tables are fixed and we can only move the benches and the chairs. In the corner is where the medics will be. There's stone slabs. I always joke that's what you put the bodies on. There's the info desk where you'll come and ask anything you need to know about timings, about getting sleeping accommodation. The kitchen is through to the right, and the charging facilities will be just on that bench, just by the doorway to the kitchen. Indoors, it's limited, as I've just said. It's nice, it's steady throughout the spine, but if we get more than 6 athletes in and they open their drop bags, it gets crowded and it's difficult. There's Anna on the right there, luxuriating last summer in lots of space. We have snacks on the tables, just as you get in most checkpoints. The whiteboard is in there. The information desk, as I said. If you want to sleep, it's probably best when you arrive, if it's quite busy, to check, because it's rare that we have to have a waiting list for the bunks and tents, but it can happen. There's no Wi-Fi in the building, but there is a decent 5G or 4G signal. It is better by the door or outside. As I mentioned, there's charging. We will kit check you outside if there's not many people in and it's horrific with midges. We're often shouting, shut the door throughout the night. Then we will kit check you inside. We don't have drying facilities. We do have drying racks that we have outside, but you can imagine that if the weather's bad or it's damp overnight, then that's not really much use at all. And again, just reiterating, the no showers, but we can do footballs, and we can give you basins if you give us an ask. There will be tunes and smiles, so sing along. It really does help your mood. It certainly cheers us up as well. So sleeping accommodation, as I showed you where the tents are. Ask at the desk in the main room to be allocated. There are 12 tents, there's 1 per person. You'll be taken to the tent you've been allocated. You can bag. It can get very cold at night. It's not uncommon for us to have a frost. So bear that in mind. The hot water bottle thing has been mentioned, and I've included it later on. In summer and in winter, I think they're integral. Just a small one in your drop bag. External heat for us women who feel the cold. And it could be very hot in a tent through the day, but you can open the door. So think about that when you choose, certainly if you have the choice. If you're in a tent, you're actually nearer the toilets. That's a bonus. The sleeping accommodation upstairs, as you can see, is salubrious. We have 3 rooms upstairs. They don't have doors. They have plastic covered mattresses. You can't take your drop bag up there. It's above the main room, as you saw up the stairs, so it can be quite noisy. It's a sort of general checkpoint noise, but it does have a more reliable temperature up there. It's probably better if you just want to pop up there for 20, 30 minutes, for example. Back in the midst of the spine genesis, it was decided that checkpoint 3 would be the curry checkpoint. And so after a few years and a few giggling volunteers, Teesdale Tandoori was born. We'll have a sign up outside or at the entrance to the checkpoint, and that's because we serve korma. Now, it's not spicy, it's a mild curry, and we can do that chicken, corn, vegan and gluten-free. So all dietary requirements met. That's with rice and naan bread. We'll have gluten-free naan bread as well. If you're posh like me, you demand, of your diva, they call me, I demand to have coriander on there. As you can see, there's soup and bread as an option. There's basic desserts. In summer, because we don't have a lot of facilities in the kitchen, I'll not go into that, but it's funny. We can do pasta. In the winter, for the full winter spine, we will offer jacket potatoes. It's harder when it's busy for the Challenger North. Breakfast items, as you'd expect, basically see the menu board or ask, and we will try to cater as much as possible. Bottom right of that slide, we do actually have Google reviews. They're funny, so if you're bored, check that out. And there's James Leavesley, he's one of our repeat customers, and he's a hungry Horace. Checkpoint 1, checkpoint 3 in the summer is a chilled place, and it's Smiley. And as soon as you've gone, we put the barbecue on and we sit around and chat about what a great time we've had. But once you're out of sight, you're not out of mind, because we'll be following your dots and willing you on all of the way. The same applies really, that care at the winter checkpoint, which is further along the Pennine Way. This is about 9 miles along the Pennine Way. And we're regaled every year with tales of horrific hallucinations and the sleep demons attacking, because that is a long stretch from Middleton along to Langdon Beck. It's about a mile from the Pennine Way to the checkpoint. And that's the driveway up when you arrive. It's important to note, it's quite obvious for the summer that the boundary is back onto the Pennine Way. So it's back through that fields on that bird's eye view I showed you. In the winter, the boundary for leaving is the checkpoint is back on the Pennine Way. So it's about a mile, and you can't stop until you get back onto the Pennine Way. But look at the beautiful sky. It's another incredible setting. As you arrive, you'll see that the drop bags are in an army tent. Now, the first year we were at Langdon Beck, the temperature didn't get over -7 all week. That was the hottest that I got. So not only will drop bags get potentially wet and muddy, things could freeze in there. So I just sort of bear that in mind. They're left outside when you leave as well. You'll be brought into the checkpoint. We now have Langdon Beck TV, so your family can watch you arrive if they're bored, or they can watch us dancing. You are taken into the porch. We'll take your shoes off and take your poles off you. Pop the shoes either in the porch or in the drying room, and the poles go outside. Drying room, we do have a drying room, that's great. And actually it's quite efficient most of the time. Give your items to a volunteer, they'll label them, they'll take them into the drying room. But you can imagine, as you can see from the picture, if it's adverse weather conditions, if it's wet out there and there's a lot of people in the checkpoint, the likelihood that things are going to dry quickly is minimal. So time is of the essence. One thing we've noticed, and this is important, is to check your sleeping bag. We might not remember to ask you, but check your sleeping bag that's in your waste pack when you arrive at Langdon Beck, particularly because it's happened where through the dry bag, the rain has got into your pack and sleeping bags are wet, and you need them for Dufton and you need them for Greg's Hut for that warmth. We can dry them. We've done it successfully. So especially if you're staying for sort of 4 or 5 hours, that can be done. There are radiators actually around the building and in the lounge, but you use them at your own risk. We won't put stuff on there. Obviously, labels on everything. When you get into the hallway, that's where the check-in desk is. They'll make a note of you arriving. That's where you'll also ask about beds. We'll do your kit check in that space. That's where the whiteboard will be. It's normally just opposite where that little mini desk is. There's Sarah Perry having her kit checked before she leaves. She looks delighted about going, doesn't she? The toilets are also downstairs. The whiteboard at Langdon Beck is crucial, really, because that's where you're going to find out if you're going over Cauldron Snout or if there's a diversion, if you need to wear goggles. It's a lot of important information from HQ will be displayed on there. This is the lounge you might have heard about. It gets a bit tight. I know we're all saying this in every checkpoint, that it's busy. when the Challenger North comes through, it's snug in here. So this is the lounge pre the elves arriving and whipping everything out of it. Other than, well, we leave the chairs in, but everything else gets moved. Pretty much all of the tables. So you're eating off your knees and your bags are on the floor. You're not getting the table to rest on. Nothing so luxurious as that. But still, look, happy people. I can show you this little video.
Yeah,
That's how busy. That's kind of genuinely busy. That's not very busy. That gives you a bit of an idea because it gets way busier than that. We'll carry your drop bag into the lounge and we'll find you a seat. Like I said, you'll be eating off your knees. You'll be drop bags will be spread around. Because of that, we do allow you to go and get your own hot drinks, but actually we generally bring drinks to you, bring your food to you, and do the water refills, just so we don't have you wandering around. Don't be shy. In that kind of environment, don't be shy to ask for a volunteer. Give us a wave. Don't wait politely. That's what we're there for. We're there to help. There are charging points in the corner of that room and plug sockets. If you can't find one, just ask and we'll help you locate it. We do have Wi-Fi at Langdon Beck. It's on the cloud. So you just go on your phone, find it and log in. Sometimes it kicks you back out, but just log back in. It's quite reliable. We found this winter can be a bit chilly in that room. The log burner is no longer in action, or certainly wasn't this year, and the windows are drafty. So the temperature is a bit changeable in there, but it's something to be aware of. The medics were slightly concerned actually how cold it was in there on the Challenger North evening. So I'm just making you aware of that. The medics have a treatment room just on the ground floor near the entrance, actually. So if you need to see one, you just give us a wave, just ask, and we'll go and get one, or they'll ask you to head along to see them. And if you want a shower or you're going to go to sleep, just like any other checkpoint, we're going to get you to consolidate all your belongings and we're going to shove them in a corner, or we're going to put them in an adjoining room until you get back. And we will find them. It just might take a minute or so. We've never lost one. It just sometimes takes 30 seconds or a minute. So just remain patient. If you're lucky, then you might get to get on the Elaine Bisson couch. I think it's a favourite part of the Pennine Way. Sleeping accommodation is upstairs. Everybody loves stairs. In bunks, it's typical YHA. This room photograph is of the medics room, actually, but that's typical of what they look like. Again, the process is you ask at the main desk, you'll be allocated a bunk. They're all numbered. You'll be taken to the room. There are 2 more toilets and 2 unisex showers upstairs as well, but you cannot take your drop bag up. It's the standard right up I think the course. They're not quiet. It's above the checkpoint room. It's general checkpoint noise, and there's obviously snoring. And it's rare that we ask athletes to sleep on the floor on their mats, but it does happen, and it has happened. And the main time it happened was when we had to stop people and hold them because of weather at High Cup Nick and on Cross Fell. That would throw some people, but look at Sophie and at Kendra. I think this sums up the attitude you need to have when a curveball is thrown at you. The checkpoint was absolutely full. They were buzzing because they thought, well, that's an extra half hour we can have rest, and everybody has to have that. So just to always remain positive, be flexible, don't let it derail your race. There's a lot of information thrown on here. I don't think we've got time to go through it all, really. Just to reiterate, we're referred to as Middleton. Neither checkpoint is in Middleton. I don't want you to have that experience of wondering where it is, where is it. The section between Langdon Beck to Dufton is the shortest distance between support points on the race. It's only 13 miles. I think it's about 18 miles. Sorry, I don't know the kilometres off the top of my head. And it's exposed and you mustn't stop, and there are no guaranteed places to top up supplies. So it's short, but you need to get that right. And if you need more supplies, you need to have popped into Middleton. It's just a short detour. You pop up to the co-op, there's cafes there, there's a fish and chip shop, but you need to check the opening hours. I hear that the Cattle Mart actually sometimes sells butties and hot drinks as well. That's just on the Pennine Way, so keep an eye out for that. As ever, DNFs have a loose plan. Upper Teesdale is a land that Uber's yet to discover. We can help you with taxis. They're expensive. I think it's about £60. It's probably got to more than that, and they don't run through school hours. Ask us, we can tell you about public transport, but it's 2 bus connections and then a walk to get to Darlington station. Have a read through that when you look at the video. The main aim basically at the Teesdale Danduri is to turn you from Anna Jebson in the middle picture, she's a bit broken and she's very tired, to smiley Anna Jebson, who's about to go and smash the rest of the Pennine Way and finish the spine race with a smile. So I'd just leave it with this: best wishes to you with your training, and we look forward to seeing you at Langdon, Beck or Lowway Farm. That's me and that's Paul, and they're the smiling faces that are going to be waiting for you.
Thank you, Jen. That was awesome as always. And looking across, I don't think there's any questions at all on Padlet for you. So I think you've covered everything anyone would want. I think the key again, as the athlete, is make sure you leave knowing what you need to get to Dufton, because that doesn't look very far, but it's quite slow because you've got the boulders, you've got Cauldron Snout, and you've got High Cup Nick. So there's quite a lot between you and Dufton. So it is just worth making sure that you're prepared before you go.
And I think the kit checks throughout the race are kind of designed to make sure that you've got the important things for those sections. So when people are grimacing at, oh God, I've got to get that out of my bag, there is a thought process behind it, and it is to help you
get through them. Excellent. Thank you so much, Jen. Next up, we have Sharon, who's going to take us through Bellingham and a bit of Burness as well, I think, Sharon.
It's actually going to be, I'm going to pull up Debbie's slides first on Alston, Anna.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you, Sharon.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sharon. Chris and I that run Alston, we are very low tech. We have no idea how to do the PowerPoint, so Sharon has very kindly put this together for us. Sorry if it's minimal information, but I think there's plenty and all you will need. I hope so. If it's missing, please just ask at the end. We'd be delighted to help, as we will actually during the course of your visit with us. And we like to think of it as a visit. It's quite a luxurious little checkpoint. It's the same in the summer and the winter. So whatever I'm telling you now applies to both. So you will come along the Pennine Way and you will actually run where that arrow is. You'll run just past the youth hostel itself, and then you will turn up some steps to the right. Brilliant. And they are steep and they're a bit unpleasant when it's icy, but the lights are shining at the top and that will get you in. You go up those steps and then you follow around to the right and go into the main entrance, usually. There will, from this year, we've just started having an army tent in that massive car park. So things are changing very slightly, but it won't be massively different. So there will be the army tent there. We will be storing drop bags, either in the army tent or a gazebo. That's to be arranged. There is heating out there, and that is our drying room. And what an attractive sight it is. It's really grim in there. It's a scented little room. That's all I'm going to say. But it works very well. You can then come into the hostel itself, and most of the time people are in the hostel. The picture at the top shows the lounge area, which is where we do overspill, and the medics are to the left of that. The picture at the bottom shows the dining area. It's slightly different when it's full, in that we've moved some chairs out so that you sit with a chair and your drop bag. There are 2 kitchens and they are manned by the volunteers. We ask you not to enter those at all. We have a food kitchen, and we became posh last year, and we have a drinks kitchen as well. And that has made the flow for food and drink very smooth for us. It's really an absolute bonus gaining that extra kitchen. It can get very busy in there, so just be patient with our lovely volunteers. Oh yes, look at all those smiley faces. And there you can see the layout with just the 1 chair and the drop bag. When you come into Alston, you'll obviously be signed in as in all checkpoints, and then you will be brought through to this area where you'll get your choice of food and drink. The medics are down to the right from this picture, and if you need to see a medic, we'll put you on a sign-in list for that so that that doesn't get forgotten. Food in Alston. Wait, no, we'll rearrange because I didn't do these. I just rearrange. Sleeping and showers. In Alston, you're lucky. There are hot showers. There are female showers and there are unisex showers. And I think we've got 4 showers. So you can get properly cleaned up, and it makes such a difference, particularly to those feet. I'll move on swiftly because I'll be talking about food shortly, and we don't need to talk about feet. There are about 24 bunks in Alston, and 99% of the time we get you onto a bed, and usually in a single sex room. Very occasionally, when it's crazy busy, somebody's on the floor, but there is always somewhere to sleep, and it is warm and it's dry. It can be very warm, but in the winter that is an absolute godsend. In the summer we open the windows, so it's really a nice, it's fairly luxurious really, you know, as checkpoints go. So that's the sleeping and showers. We will move on to the crucial food and drinks. One or two of you may have heard about the Alston lasagna. That is what the whole spine race is about, in my opinion. I might be misguided, but it's the lasagna. We do meat lasagna, we do vegetarian, we do vegan, we do gluten-free, we do lactose-free. Once we did a garlic-free. We don't do it just on a whim, we do it on genuine dietary requirements. If you are unable to eat something and you've notified us, we will do our absolute utmost to do a lasagna version of it. It is the highlight of the race, obviously. There are other options, as in all the other checkpoints, the scrambled egg toast, soups of various sorts, desserts, snacks, all of the usual. But basically, it's lasagna or lasagna. And woe betide people that say, I don't eat lasagna. No, honestly, we will look after all of you to the best of our ability, all the same. So that's the food. The volunteers only access the kitchens because they're just not that big, and we don't want any mishaps. We'll fill your soft flasks for you, rinse things out, do whatever's needed. We will also bring out our trusty foot bowls for those that need them, so that you can get yourself clean and dry and do your own taping, as has been mentioned before. Next slide, please, Sharon.
For some reason, it's just stopped working.
Well, that is very rude of it.
I know, and the last slide was the best.
The last slide was the best. I feel it showed our smiling crew, and for obvious reasons, it had our link to our Instagram account, because Alston Lasagna is that famous, it has its own Instagram. You know, not many places can boast that, can they? We really do look forward to seeing you all. Chris and I, as I say, man it between us. Chris, you saw earlier talking about Birchcliffe. She's not very well, so she's not chatting here. I do the daytime shift 8 in the morning till 9 in the evening, and Chris does 8 in the evening till 9 in the morning. So you'll see one or other of us occasionally, because we can't keep our noses out. You'll see both of us at the wrong times. We do really enjoy seeing you, even if you come in looking like death warmed up. We will get you back out with a smile and occasionally a little skip in your steps. I can't honestly tell you a lot about what happens between us and Bellingham, because I've hardly ever made it out of the car park. I've done 14 sessions at Alston, and I basically stick within the hostel boundaries. I've never made it out onto the Pennine Way, and that will probably carry on year after year. Keep doing what I do best, which is be in and be a bit motherly to you if that's what you want, and leave you with a smile, hopefully.
Thank
Are there
you.
any questions?
There haven't been any questions, Debbie. Thank you so much.
Brilliant.
That was all really, really clear. I mean, I think in terms of what's outside, perhaps somebody else will pick it up, but from an athlete perspective, not far from you, there's definitely that petrol station, which will be
Oh,
open.
absolutely, yeah. Actually, within Alston, there's plenty of opportunities. Petrol station, there's another supermarket, there's cafes, there's all sorts. And one final thing to say is that we have what we call our retirees guide to Alston, which is DNF in a nicer word, and we print out sheets that we then hand out to anybody that might be brought to us that's DNF'd or reluctantly DNFs at Alston, and that has all the taxis, the trains, the whatever you might need, all the phone numbers, even places you can stay if you're going to have to stay overnight. But we will accommodate all DNFers in Alston right up till we close on the, well, we close on the Thursday night, but we actually leave the building on the Friday morning. People are welcome right up to that last minute. But once we leave, they leave too.
That's
it.
Thank you, Debbie, and that's really clear. And so hopefully everyone now knows how to deal if they end up at Alston, and hopefully they'll just be passing through Alston on their way up the course.
Absolutely.
To see Sharon, who will be doing Bellingham.
I will, as soon as I can get this off my screen. Just bear with. Right, here we go. We'll just get the next one up. Okay. Thanks, Anna. So I'm just going to discuss Bellingham checkpoint, which is the one that I probably know the best because I've volunteered there and managed there for a good number of years. So the checkpoint in Bellingham is at Brownrigg Lodges, which is literally on the Pennine Way. It is CP3 for the Challenger North, CP5 for the Montane Spine Race, and it's also the start line for the Sprint North, which begins on Tuesday at 12 p.m. So you come down through fields. We can actually see you coming, as we say, over the top, and you'll come down through fields. So in the summer, when the grass is dewy, if your feet aren't wet already, they're going to be quite wet as you're coming down through these fields. A lot of people kind of get lost up there. I don't know what happens, but it's a bit like the Twilight Zone up there. And I don't know whether the GPX file sends you around in circles, but I think Anna's succumbed to that. I know Sabrina had a bit of it to do a few years ago. So just be mindful if you're sleep deprived. The GPX can just play havoc with you in this area. So you're going to come down to the main road, and you can actually see the Pennine Way sign there. You're going to come down to the main road, and you are going to turn left along to the checkpoint. You actually walk along the road on the left-hand side, so you're going with the flow of traffic. It's just a very, very narrow grassy path here. Unfortunately, there's not a footpath on the other side, so you're going to have to stay on the left-hand side. And on this corner here, this is where the volunteer will be waiting to greet you. So in the hours of darkness, look out for head torches, and they will lead you in. So you're actually coming through, as I say, coming through fields, and then you're hitting the main road. And it shares the entrance to the camping and caravanning club site. This is the track that you're going to go up. The track actually splits into three. You don't want to take this left-hand track because that takes you into the camping and caravanning club site. This middle track takes you into a lower car park where the volunteers park. And you'll be going up this right-hand track. You'll be getting led in by a volunteer, because by the time you get to Bellingham, particularly if you're doing the full spine race, you're not going to know whether you're Arthur or Martha. This is the top of the track. This is the car park that I mentioned where the volunteers park. We've got a start arch here. This is for the sprint north. So I think this was taken in winter. This building here is the shower block. Shower and unisex toilets. It also doubles up as a camp kitchen in the summer, for the summer spine. And to the left of that building is the camping field where we set up the tent village in the summer months for the spine race. As the road leads around here to the right, you go into sort of a courtyard, and kind of over this way is where the checkpoint building is. As is previously mentioned, it's now 6 hours maximum stay at the main checkpoints for summer and winter, so that's an easy one to remember. Your timeline, it's all about you by the time you get to Bellingham. You've got to Bellingham, you've got to get to the end, you've got to push hard from here. So what I would say is, and I'm not a runner, but on your approach to the checkpoint, start and plan your strategy. What do you want to achieve within those 6 hours? For a lot of female runners at Bellingham, they'll get there, and I think one of the first things that they want to do is get freshened up. The showers are nice and warm. They are unisex, so when you go into the shower block, make sure that you've got all your kit that you need with you, your toiletry bag, your change of clothes, sliders for your feet. If you want to do a pit stop, and I think Nikki touched upon that earlier, that's basically when you want to be in and out. Make that be known to the volunteer when you're met at the road, and we will facilitate that as much as possible. The clock starts ticking in the summer as you reach the corner of the tented village, and in the winter when you get inside of the main checkpoint. So race smart, be savvy, be Nicky Spinks, do a lot of faffing outside of the checkpoint so that you can get your act together. When you come in, you know exactly what you want to do. Nikki's got that down to a fine art now. You know, she thinks ahead of time, and she'll come in and she'll sort of say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sleep, I'm going to eat, and I'm going to leave. Hello, drop bag. You're going to be reunited with your drop bag for the last time here, and you'll be pleased because it's probably now going to be a bit of a festering mess. Get your electricals put on charge straight away. The charging facilities at Bellingham are limited. There's not many sockets. It's an old sort of pre-war building, so some of the electricals have got to be on different circuits. You might find that there's stuff plugged in, so that it's key that you use your charging banks. Athlete food, as has been covered, we've got all dietary requirements covered. We actually get a list supplied by Spine HQ with everybody's dietary requirements in advance, but our kitchen staff will always check to make sure, you know, what are your dietary requirements? Have you got any allergies? And we know by the time you're approaching the checkpoint, but we do like to double check because we don't want to get it right, especially at this late stage in the race. The main meal at Bellingham, summer and winter, is a sausage casserole with a creamy mashed potato, and we'll find that's more suitable for delicate mouths this late in the stage. And like the other checkpoints, lots of other lighter options available. This is going to be the place where you get your final kit check, and you need to ensure that you've got everything vital that you're going to need, because once you leave us, you're going to call by the monitoring point at Burness, and then you're heading into the Cheviot. So if you don't use your poles on the flat, but you use them on the inclines, you're going to make sure that you're going to leave with your poles when you leave Bellingham. Similar to some of the other checkpoints, a bit of a tented village in summer. We've got the smaller green two-person tents, which you'll occupy by yourself if you want to rest. The tents are big enough so that we can carry a drop bag and put it in the vestibule or the porch of the the tent so that it's there when you wake up. And there's larger tents for receiving athletes when they first arrive. And we've acquired a larger family-sized tent, which now the medics use. So if you need to be seen by the medics, you can be seen in some degree of privacy. Unisex toilets and showers, as mentioned, which are just kind of to the left of this field. Lots of midges here. It can be unbearable at times. So you're going to need a midge net, you're going to need midge repellent, and if it does get unbearable, we can actually bring you into the shower block area and sit you on a seat in there if that's what you want, room permitting. In the summer, it can be extremely hot if you want to sleep. Likewise, it can be very, very cold. So again, as Jen mentioned and others have mentioned, pop a small hot water bottle into your drop bag and we can top that up with hot water if you're going to go and have a little sleep. Accommodation in Bellingham is small. The top image shows you the picture of the main athlete checkpoint. I think there's about 7 athletes in there along with medics and volunteers. And there was probably, I think at the time I took that picture, there was at least 15 people sleeping in the hall, which is to the right of that room. And as of this year, we requested these freestanding tents where we inflated some mattresses. This was a first in the winter. We asked for mattresses and thankfully they gave us some. And in each tent, we were able to put a couple of mattresses. We tend to try and put the females in there for a bit of privacy, just in case you wanted to, take a few items of clothing in. Definitely not a drop bag, but say you wanted a change of a base layer, you could take that into the tent with you and change in a degree of privacy. This sleeping area is right next to this main checkpoint. The noise carries, so it can be noisy. Unfortunately, we just can't keep the noise down in here when you've got people in. So we'll recommend earplugs, an eye mask if you want to sleep through the day, and sleeping bag, hot water bottle. To the left of this small room is the kitchen area, again, just for volunteers only because it's very small, and there are a couple of toilets as well. When you go for a sleep, if it's not busy, we'll allow the drop bags to be just tucked under the seats, but when it does get busy, we just ask for these to be packed away, and we'll either put them in one of the toilet areas, or in the winter just gone, we did have to move a few outside. Once you've come inside, if you decided that you want to go for a shower, the shower block, if you remember, you pass it on the way in. So you'll be walked over by one of the volunteers. So you'll need your sliders. You'll probably need your head torch in winter if you're going over at night time. And we'll keep an eye on the time to make sure that you haven't sort of fallen asleep over there, because it is nice and warm. Bit of a tip. So that's the accommodation. Winter and summer, basically no drying room. If it's warm outside, we can fashion a washing line amongst the trees for the summer spine. Electrical sockets are very, very limited, both winter and summer, so it's important that you bring some charging banks and keep them in your drop bag. And because Bellingham is the last main checkpoint, you need to ensure that your phones have got at least 50% charge. Bung them on charge as soon as you come there. Full winter spine, particularly in the winter, we often find that trackers need a little bit of a top up. So we'll be monitoring this in conjunction with Race HQ. So often when you first come in, we'll ask if we can grab your pack just so we can charge the tracker while it's still attached to your pack. As mentioned earlier, if that tracker is starting to hurt your shoulder, please shout up. We can retape it for you and make sure that it's going to be comfortable, so that it's not doing your head in for the rest of the race. Winter, there's Wi-Fi available within the hall, but unfortunately in the summer the Wi-Fi doesn't actually reach across to the tented village, so just be mindful of that. The Wi-Fi code will be up on the board inside of the checkpoint in the winter spine. Quickly, the facilities in Bellingham, the co-op, I spoke to the co-op the other day. They're aware that the summer race is coming through soon, so they've made a note of that. They get extra hot pasties in. There's a lovely cafe called the Rocky Road. They're aware as well. The last orders there is 2:30. Great little pharmacy in Bellingham if you run out of your paracetamol, you need any toiletries. And we've had a few people needing to call in at the country store to buy some gaffer tape to make some running repairs to kit, etc. So they're all good to use. A little reminder about Hornistead Farm. Hornistead Farm, the pit stop, is about just over 5 miles before the Bellingham checkpoint, and it can be quite a little quiet haven, particularly in winter, when, you know, Bellingham is bursting at the seams and resembles a bit of a field hospital at times. So you might want to consider calling into Hornistead, and if it's quiet, you can do a Eugenie. You can lie on this probably tick-ridden sofa in a sleeping bag that's already been provided with a, looks like he's eating a bucket of Rocky Road. And Helen, the lovely lady that owns this little pit stop, will have provided soup, and I think there's a toilet there. So maybe consider that, because I think a few people have benefited from a good rest at Hornistead, rather than risk coming into Bellingham and getting disturbed sleep. It's just something to bear in mind. And I think that's about it, Anna.
That is absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Sharon. And thank you for being the sort of architect of the main PowerPoints as well. It was absolutely brilliant. So hopefully, guys, that's given you a really good overview of what's at Bellingham, because by the time you get there, you'll be absolutely desperate for it. And it really is that sort of, that will send you off on that last push. And I know this has been a long webinar, and well done everyone who's actually still with us. We're now in those very, very final few bits, and we're going to start talking about Kirk Yetholm, because we want everybody to make sure they see Kirk Yetholm if they're on one of the longer races. So I'm going to hand it back to Nikki, who's going to talk us through the finish.
Yeah, I echo your sentiments. Well done everyone who's still hanging in, because there's a lot of information here. This will be a whistle-stop tour, really. This is the Border Hotel. I'm sure it needs no introduction, with the end of the Pennine Way Border Hotel sound on the end. This little bit, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this little bit here is the wall that everybody touches, kisses, greets like a long lost loved relative when they get to the end of one of the races that ends in Kirk Yetholm. So that's the Sprint North, the Challenger North, and the Full Spine. This door, black door here, is the door that you're taken into. So outside, you'd get your medal, have an interview, and then go in through the door. We've got Debbie, lovely Debbie, Martin Consani. So she's there, smiling, touching the wall next to the equally famous defib, which we've never had to use yet, touch wood. Get your medal, have your short interview at that point. This is just a brief video. Let me just make sure I've turned the sound off on this. A brief video to try and show you just briefly what the inside of the checkpoint looks like. So this is in beyond the foyer. You go through this back room, which is where we've got food and drinks being served up by the crew. The drop bags for people who are imminently, oh, sorry, I don't know why that's gone back. The drop bags for the people who are imminently coming into the checkpoint are stored immediately there. This is the back room with chairs. When it's not very busy, you'll have a chair for you to sit on, a chair for your merch, your medal, your certificate, and then you'll have your drop bag next to you. But the more crowded it gets, the tighter you're packed in. It's a little bit messy at this point. This is quite early. There's merch that you can buy down the side here. We've got a photo backdrop if you want to take any photos. This is the merch that you're given at the end of the race, the finishers merch. And then we've got screens up so that we can track your every move as you're approaching us. Very similar to everywhere else. You get food, you get drinks. If the pub's open, they do fantastic meals. So try to arrive in in pub hours. Massive waits for the showers. That we have one shower there. There aren't any showers provided for the Sprint North. Neither of the sprint races nor the Challenger South has showers. So this is only for Challenger North and the full spine race, and there is one. So you can end up having long waits, and the merch I've just mentioned. About a mile away from the Border Hotel, there's the youth hall. This is a hall that we use for bulk delivery of drop bags coming up the trail, and then we usually take the bags of the people who are already on the Cheviots over to the Border Hotel, and just like with all the other checkpoints, those drop bags will be waiting for you when you arrive. It's worth saying, so as with the Sprint South, Sprint North, not many people do have a drop bag, but you are welcome to. Challenger North bags come up in this way, and full spine bags coming up the trail in this way. Anybody who's an international athlete, or it's usually international athletes who take up this option, but you can book to have an additional bag moved up the trail. It doesn't go to any of the checkpoints. It's a finish bag rather than a drop bag. So you can pay extra, and it would simply go from your start line directly to your finish line, but you do not have access to that bag in the other checkpoints on the way up. Getting home is your responsibility. Oh, sorry, I should just say with this hall, you're sleeping on the floor. You'd be amazed how comfortable that can feel after what you've been through and how tired you are, but you're just sleeping on the floor, and there's a very small kitchenette where you can make hot drinks. There's a microwave. We'll stick some copper soups and some jam and peanut butter and things in there, and bread, but it's very basic. No showers up in this hall. We have a shuttle bus that we've just started trialing, actually, a 9-seater shuttle bus, which will take people from the hotel to this hall. So we're not expecting you after you've finished your race to walk a mile with your drop bag. We will help you. So getting home, I keep saying this, I know, and I'm sorry, but it is very much your responsibility. We can help you liaise with other runners. We can help you with bus timetables. Lots of people share cabs when leaving Kirk Yetholm, but please plan ahead. Look at the public transport options. You might get lucky and you might end up getting a lift somewhere, even to somewhere like Berwick for a train station with someone else, but assume that's not going to happen, and really research this stuff well. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Nikki, thank you for topping and tailing the whole webinar for us and bringing everybody full circle. There's been no further questions over the last sort of half an hour or so, so I think we've been picking them up as we've gone along. Thanks again to everyone for joining. I'm hoping this will be a resource for the ages, because I think we've covered so much stuff in here that I wish I'd known when I did my first spine, and I'm sure many people who are actually listening will be finding this hugely invaluable. I really want to say thank you on behalf of everybody in the WhatsApp group for all of you who've given up so much time to putting this together. None of you had to, and all of you did. And so I really appreciate it, and I know others will. So thanks again, everybody. I'm going to draw this to a close. It's definitely been our longest ever, but hopefully also it's been our most useful. So thanks, everyone, and see you soon.